Going live. And we are finally live, buffered. Beautiful sound check that has taken us half an hour to sort out. But now we're here today, right on time, with a very special artist and a excellent person to know and to have spent time with also in non-disclosed things. But we've had I'm very excited to share this artist, their artwork, their commercial work, their opinions and creative foundations. This is Moog Gravett. So that's hello. How you doing?
I'm really well, thank you.
Oh
Nice to
man,
see you again.
yes, it's been a little bit, but I'm really excited to
hmm
have you on the show, and I just wanted to catch up with you, share a little bit about what you do, and
Yeah.
share about a tiny bit about Trailer Farm and Big Farmer and creative fundamentals. You really wanted to touch on a artist, a historical German artist, from what I know, Lettier, and silhouettes and
Yeah.
other art fundamentals. So there's a lot to cover, and there's also a lot of excellent art that you have done that has heavily inspired everything that I have done. So I'm extremely honored. So tell
Well,
how you been?
I have. Oh, excuse me. I've got a
Got a
tiny
visitor?
delivery around the door. Thank you. No, I'm okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. First interruption of the day. It's just my daughter's bedtime as well.
It's all
Um,
good.
I'm good. I'm good. I've had a lovely summer. Um, it's been it's been cool. I went to France and went camping and just did loads of really cool stuff. And work wasn't too mad. So it's been a nice, after a very stressful end of last year and beginning of this. It's been fun.
Good. I'm glad this year has been really nice. France is beautiful.
Hmm.
So I guess we can begin with your first three pieces. Everyone, I typically ask every guest three of their pieces that they'd like to share. And you particularly picked two inkwash pieces, which you have done
I
yourself
did.
in real life, which is more than what I can say, and also a Lego piece. So tell us about these
Yeah.
three pieces. What can we learn about
Okay.
you and these?
Well, let's see. Firstly, I hope I didn't misunderstand the brief of giving you three pieces of art, all essentially by me, and just come across as a massive big head or anything like that. But seeing as here we are, so these are two pieces of personal outside work and one piece of work for one of the companies I work for. Um, so the one where the Lego piece at the top, let's start there. That is a still from a trailer that I wrote and directed for a game called Lego Hill Climb Adventures. Um, I work at a company. Well, I work at two companies, which are sort of the same company. It's a bit weird. Trailer Farm and BigFarmer, which are both companies that specialize in making video game trailers and cutscenes and virtual production shoots and all that kind of fun stuff. Um, and this was one of my favorite projects I've done in recent times. It was great. Ah, there's our Big Pharma website.
There you go. Yes.
So yeah, it was an awesome little project. Because I don't know, Lego is one of those bucket list things. I think it's the great thing about it is it wasn't just we want a game trailer, go and capture a bunch of game footage. It was something that was like we want a story. We want to introduce the character in the world. We want to see something happening. So I got to essentially write a little 2-minute Lego short and play with it, and it was great fun. So yeah, we did a whole bunch of stupid stuff. There's loads of little jokes and chickens jumping up and all that kind of cool stuff. So yeah, that was just I wanted to sort of just put a still on that because that shows kind of the stuff I do professionally. Um, and not only was it a really great looking thing, um, one of our really senior artists did a lot of the work, or probably most of the work on this. And getting that, getting the texture of the Lego is insanely cool. Like there are some shots that if you look really close on it, then you can see little micro scratches and
So look at these higher
really tiny details.
definition images here.
Yes. Yeah, I think in
Whoa.
fact we actually went, here you can start to see, some grime and some,
Fingerprints.
see fingerprints. We actually had it turned way up as well to make it look like it had just been made with really old Lego, but we had to dial it back. And there's our chickens. There they are.
The chickens.
So I don't know. I mean, I just wanted to sort of put that one out there because I suppose it's sort of fairly representative of what I do professionally. I'm not a 3D artist by any stretch of the imagination. I've tinkered in the past, so my role in this capacity is like I say, it's writing, it's directing, and it's bringing it all together with a bunch of incredibly talented artists. So that's sort of like one side of it, really. This is the professional side. So
And
there's that.
This is also one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you today, because sometimes there's a lot of, I guess you could say, imposter syndrome of creative people who think they need to be a really amazing nerd who understands geometry nodes or does some crazy stuff, but to be in the arts or to be in the industry. But sometimes being a creative is much more, or even less, depends how you look at it, is a concept of expression and working with others and doing things more than just the
For
technical
sure.
side of the industry. There's a lot of room for a lot
It
of
is.
people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, I've been in and around the games industry for about 20 odd years, 22 years, something like that. And I still feel daily imposter syndrome. And I don't think it's ever going to go away, but I still get to do cool stuff. And, it's the classic thing. It's like, I'm always looking over my shoulder, waiting for the person to, pull me aside and say, hang on a minute, this isn't for you, sir. But yeah, I mean, I got away with it so far.
You've done well there. So let's take a look at one of your personal pieces. You picked
Yeah,
Freddie Mercury and a building.
sure. Why not? Let's do, whichever one. Freddie Mercury, maybe.
Let's go there.
So yeah, this is just, I mean, a lot of the personal art I do is really sketchy. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that I'm probably not good enough to do anything that's hyper real or anything. I really genuinely don't have the skills, probably, or the patience or the time to learn to do anything hyper detailed. So I like to get images done quickly, and so that's built into the style of work that I do. So yeah, so this, I mean, this one here, Freddie Mercury, I'm a massive Queen fan, so I wanted to just try and see if I could make an image. And I think I might have done about 4 different versions of this, and this is the one I landed on that I liked. And the actual art time of this was probably something like 40 minutes, and it's really small. So I think one of the reasons that I work this way as well, which is very, very sketchily, very, very loose, is that I don't have a lot of time to make any art on paper. So much of my life is taken up with other stuff. So what I end up doing is finding things that I can do quickly in one sitting. So that's exactly where we landed here. And the other thing is that I've only very recently got into watercolor.
Really?
In fact, that one there is all the building, which is one of my first watercolor pieces. I started in 23. That was pretty much when I
2
started.
years ago only.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
So, well, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, I eat this
Yeah,
stuff up. I mean, I lately you inspired me a lot to get into inkwash, especially when it comes to 3D,
okay.
because inkwash is one of those art styles that is so organic. And I think Alan,
Yeah.
he's here in the chat and YouTube. He can testify to this, that a painterly style with the hand built vibe in a digital space is something that's extremely hard to do. And
We know that only too well.
and it's hard to nail it well with the expression. So to see you whip out a piece like this in 40 minutes, the texture of the paper, the lines, the the colors, all of this is something that I zoom in. I literally zoom in and take a closer look, like the camera defocus right up here, or the paper specularity, all of these little details that you throw in there in the limited time that you have is highly inspirational to me. You have many
I mean, that's
pieces.
what. Yeah. I mean, this is sort of just a little selection because I do a lot in alcohol marker as well.
Cool.
Um,
Which would be these ones here, right?
and yeah. So a lot of this stuff is, again, these probably take a little longer, some of them, but they're just fun to make. I mean, I've got this whole series I want to do of nerd art and movie related stuff, so I've done a few things, but it's just fun just to just be really loose with this art.
Yes.
I think if I were to try and do something that was, ultra realistic and detailed, I would just get frustrated. And in fact, when I ever have tried to make things look better than, that's not maybe the right way to say, but better than I think I can do, when I try and make things that are, tidier, they just end up just being too rigid and I don't like them. So this is my style. I just like to scribble around. I like to suggest lines rather than be absolutely, locked into what the line should be. I'm getting a lot of lag here. I don't know. I just want to check that you're still.
Yeah, I'm
With
good.
you.
Yes, you're here.
Okay, great, awesome.
The sound is on. YouTube will be behind if you're watching yourself on YouTube. That will be like 4 or 5 seconds behind.
Sure.
But
That's right. No, I'm just sitting. Just the thing up above. In fact, it's a bit frozen, but it's cool. We'll get along there.
okay, let's just swap.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of these images, it's like I don't even necessarily worry about lines being square or straight. In fact, I actively move away from that. Everything's slightly twisted and slightly wonky, and yeah, it's all suggestion. Sorry about the watermarks. I couldn't find the unwatermarked ones. I wasn't just being a dick.
Don't worry. That's so perfectly fine.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you with the concept. Okay, limited time, painting outside of the lines. The lines are not 100%. The colors are an abstraction. They're not 100%. The realism, you want to get it done. You want to get it down on paper, and you want to have it wobbly, imperfect. You want an impression of the art piece, and this is, to me, is absolutely stunning. We've got comments on YouTube saying that they love this type of stuff. They love the color splash. That it's super nice. The kind of drawing says they like the painting, especially the inkwash or watercolors, have multiple levels of detail, composed colors and textures. A splot can become a texture, the personality behind it. Like, I really just love how you drew the outline of the bushes and then slapped on some color and then scribbled in a trunk. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think it's a great style.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's one of those things I actually started I started getting into sketching and had a bit more time is I did a course on Domestika just completely randomly, and it was an urban sketching kind of course. And I just thought, oh, I'll just give it a try, and it was massively inspiring. It was crikey, why have I forgotten the guy's name? Albert someone, but yeah, it's a really good course. And it was I found that just really inspiring, so I gave it a go and did a couple of pieces, and then really damaged my knee. So that was bad. But the good part of it, it meant that I could actually just sit around a lot and have a bit of time to sketch. So I managed to, out of misery comes art.
Innovation. Nice.
Yeah. And this is quite cool as well. Some of these, this particular one here, was a commission. I've actually already started getting some commissions through, which is really nice.
So, how does a commission work? I've never had an official commission. What's the commission scene like?
Well, what usually happens is someone will come to me and say, "I really, really like whatever picture you did. Would you mind? Would you do something for me on this? For example, this particular one, which is this was a pub where someone met their partner or something like that. And they say, how much would it cost? And then because I'm English, I just sort of fumble around a bit and mumble under my breath, trying to avoid the subject of money. And yeah, and then usually drastically undercut myself and get them to send a couple of reference pictures, or I find some pictures of wherever it is online. And I'll just do a little warm up. Like there's actually another picture of this, which is the front on one. And that was my warm up, and then I went into doing this one. And yeah, and I'll sit there and I'll fiddle around with it, and I'll send them a digital version. If they like it, they can have the original.
Beautiful.
So that's it, really.
A one in a kind piece. So let's touch the topic of these fundamentals. So you started learning these relatively recently. You picked it up like a fish to water, and you started to impress people. You're doing it quickly, you're doing it in a stylistic way because your time is limited, understandable. Especially when, as far as I know, we had a creative supervisor from Reddit not too long ago. And we had a small little talk about the difference between a creative director and a creative supervisor. And the key difference was being the creative director, you needed to manage the client and express the creativity to the client, and versus managing the creativity for the technical artist. So I guess
it's an interesting distinction.
So it's like one is outwards facing and the other one's inwards facing, concerning the wall between the artist or the manual labor and the client briefing. So what do you think of that perspective? Is that on the money? Or is that how you would define that line?
The one thing I think I've come to realize is that at Trailer Farm and Big Farmer, we do things probably a little differently to the industry at large, and that's partly because we grew very quickly from a very small team up to a sort of a pretty good going business with sort of some very respectable clients. Interestingly, my job is both of those things.
Nice.
As so, as a creative director at Big Pharma, I am that conduit, but it goes both ways. So I suppose I'm more of a, what's the opposite of a capacitor or a transistor? But anything that's something could go two ways through.
A
I've
bridge.
lost that analogy, and a bridge will be fine. Thank you. So yeah, so it's so. I mean, well, I'm sort of like I don't know, maybe it's even like 3 points of a triangle. A brief will come in from our commercial department. I will then generate on paper just words on a page that, a whole range of ideas. So I might absolutely brainstorm like, 12, 20, 15, whatever ideas of what I see their project being. And then if they like them, them, or if they then narrow them down, if they like them, we go for it. And then it's a matter of, I have to really get into understanding what they want. I have to understand their mindset, and then I have to evolve that. And then when this little kernel of a thing is ready, then we have to, obviously bring people in to make it. So then my job becomes working with, the talented artists that we bring on board. And then it becomes my job to tread the line of making sure that we're getting what we need for the client, and they know what they want. And also, the way I work is, I believe that if you're hiring artists, you should hire artists because they do good art. There's no point in hiring an artist and then saying, make this thing go over there 2 pixels, unless you've got a very good reason for it that you absolutely, there's no way around. But yeah, so my job becomes one of trying to get out of the artist. It's almost like an acting director. It's like, you don't want to give an actor a line read and go over there, stand in front of the camera and say it just like this. You want to say, go and express yourself, go and do the thing you do. And then it comes back. And as the director, I can give notes on that. I can say, that's interesting, but why don't we try it sunnier? Whatever. If I was talking to an actor, whatever. But, I'm trying to sort of, coax out what I know I need to see, but leave enough room for artistic interpretation from the artists. And then I get that back to the client, and then the whole circle goes round again. The client will tell me what they like or they do not like about that piece of work, and we go around as long as we can, until we end up with with the finished piece. Oh, look, and here I am doing some motion capture shoots, having a great time, as you can see. That's another great part of my job, is going and doing mocap shoots, working on virtual production stages like this. That's always good fun.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. It must be a lot of fun doing things live, improvising on the spot.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
I've only done a small amount. Yeah, I've only done a small amount with voice acting direction, and it's just fun. It's just fun to see the actor get into the role and pull out some takes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean the best. Well, I mean the it's a very different way of working, sort of being with live actors, or that sort of thing in the moment. It's just the difference in the preparation. I mean, I think when you're working on something that's being created slowly in 3D, or as being a painting or whatever, you can take the time to sort of roll with it. But when you're on a set live, you've got to have had preparation. So it becomes like, it's almost like the weeks before it become the job, and then the day of shoot is the release. And then whereas it's like the other way around. If you're building something in CG, it's kind of interesting, but it's nice to have variety. And that's one of the great things about is the stuff I do, is that I get to do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, I think there's times where I've gone from working on something. In fact, if you look at some of these, there's some pretty heavy stuff. The thing with the syringe there was a really disturbing intro to a horror game called The Outlast Trials. And it was so horrific that Slipknot ended up using it on stage to open their shows with.
Really?
Gross. Yeah. So it was pretty scary stuff. And then I think I went from that into something really light and fluffy and silly, and it's great. I just get flip flopped all over the place. Yeah,
Some of these are amazing.
yeah. I can't actually see what you're looking at because it's kind of I'm very stalled on my end, but I'll just.
Okay, I'll briefly restart my camera. Let's see if that helps. Okay, so when you mentioned you wanted, like, you've done these horror pieces, these fun zany pieces, the Tron
Yeah.
pieces, live action
Mm.
composites into fantasy stages. Then there was one particular piece that you did direct, which was this short film uh, with a
Oh
deer and a
yeah.
dog. So
Mm-hmm.
so, in the creative process concerning the fundamentals of how you do things, how does this film
Yeah.
come into play?
Okay, so this was a Gearbox game called Blanc, and the client came to us and they said they wanted a CG piece to set up the world of the game. And the game is in this, sort of very pencil shaded style. So the game does exist in this kind of world anyway. But what we had to do was take that and make it better. Um, and so we did a lot of art development in this. There's a really amazing artist called Kev Hayes who developed this shader system in C4D. Um, and yeah, and so we got a lot of their game assets, or all their game assets, in fact, and put them through our own process to upres the the models and improve on the textures and all that sort of stuff. And then it was a case of, okay, well, what's the story? So once we proved the tech, then I had to write how these guys met, because when you go into the game, you pretty much start the wolf cubs on one side of a ravine, the deer is on another side of the ravine, and they set off. So the question was, how did they meet? And so we ended up making this, and I wrote this story just showing how this one little cub ended up literally bumping into the other one,
Yes,
and
here it
just
is.
how they started working together. So there he is, literally bumping in. Um, and yeah, and so the story just developed again with rounds of feedback from the client and all that kind of stuff, um, and then it was a case of like, well, we need to get some really good animators to do this. And we did. We had a really nice team, but essential to me was an animator called Rafaela Burgess, who was our lead animator on this, and she's incredible. She does work for DreamWorks. She's worked on Minions movies and Secret Life of Pets, and she's good. Um, and she also really kept me in check as well. She's sort of like it was really nice, actually, a really nice experience to have someone there forcing me to make decisions on the spot, because I like to, I mean, you know this only too well, I like to sort of sit and mull on things and think about every possible angle, and then try a couple of things out. But she really worked me hard, and I think that really came across. And she was, her and her team worked amazingly, and every note I had, she would just take on board, and occasionally we'd argue. And but the next day it would come back, and now the shots were ready. And she's an amazing um, animal interpreter, as you can see. Like anything I asked for her to do, like there's some stuff. There's the bit where I mean, this is a great example. The amount of time we worked on that jump and the wolf's reaction, and I was just getting her to sort of frame push here and there. for ages, just to make sure, just to get that timing right and make it feel just like they're really reactive with each other and living in the same world. But she stuck with me, and yeah, just really managed to make it work. And it's still one of my favorite trailers I've ever made.
Yeah, this trailer's
And I
almost
think a
like a
lot of that
short
is down to
film,
this.
pretty much.
I was just about to say, yeah, it is to me like a short film. I approached it as such, in the same way that I did with the Lego Hill Climb one. Sometimes it's appropriate, and I prefer to think of it less as a piece of advertising, a piece of marketing, rather than just let's tell a really nice story and make a little film. And if you got the right project, I think it can work really well. And I don't know how. I mean, I do know how the game went. It wasn't as successful as it ought to be because it's a beautiful game. Um, but the trailer was incredibly well received, so I was very proud of that.
Excellent. Yeah, completely beautiful. I really love the hatching shading. That worked out quite nicely too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, Kev did an amazing job with how he brought all that together. And this was, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So it was it was quite early on in that kind of shader world.
Yeah, groundbreaking.
Well, I wouldn't ever say that myself.
You didn't say that was me. All right, so we got comments that are like, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. The work that you do, Tron's amazing, beautiful piece. Dang, they didn't realize that during the puppy was 3D.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. We got it right then.
There you go. All right, so when it comes to creative fundamentals, you brought up an
Yeah.
artist called Lettier. Lotte
Lotte,
Reinegar. Lotte
I mean,
Reinegar. I mixed the two up. I'm dyslexic right there. Sorry about that.
that's okay. I would say Lotte
Lotte
Reinegar.
Lotte
German
Reinegar.
people might disagree with me.
All right, they will definitely
But yeah,
disagree with
she's one of my
me.
favorite artists, and I adore her work.
So,
She was, go on.
so tell her about her. Sorry, I was interrupting
Okay.
your
Yeah, yeah,
explanation.
yeah. Not at all. She was a German illustrator who worked for an advertising company and started making some short advertisements based on Indonesian shadow puppetry. And this evolved into her own style, and she started making shorts, sort of fairy tale kind of interpretations. Um, and yeah, so she developed a form of early stop motion animation, where each of these elements is cut out cardboard or mylar or whatever she might have used at the time. And I mean, I don't have to describe stop motion. We all know what we're talking about, but I find the work she does just so viscerally beautiful. There's something in just the way. I mean, I love silhouette stuff anyway, and that might be something we might touch on a bit later anyway. But I'm really drawn to shadow and silhouette and that kind of thing. But then, we look in the background of certain things, and especially as she gets further on in her career, the backgrounds are really nice. But everything's so it's just tonal. It's like there's nothing that's crazy detailed in the backgrounds, but there's a lot. This example is really nice. There's a lot of repetitive shape and interesting design, and lots of Middle Eastern inspiration all over the place. And there's so much great shape in their architecture, and Moroccan tiles and all those sort of things, and all of that comes together in this single woman studio in 1916 or whenever it is, when she starts making these short films. And one point that I always love to to drag out when I start talking about Lotte Reinegar is that she was the first person to make a feature-length animated film,
What?
not the Walt Disney Company.
Serious at
She
90-minute
made
film.
a film called The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, which you've got. I think you've got a couple of images from that I just
This
saw.
one
Looking at
here,
that. In
right? The black
fact,
and white, right? Is this one?
that I
Or
don't know. I don't think. I think that's from a fairy tale one. But
it's from
there's
this
a picture of her with a model. Make it this one here, the one where she's leaning over the desk.
this one.
At the top.
This one.
No, not that one, but that one. That's the horse from The Adventures of Prince Ahmed. So yeah, she made this. But yeah, it's a feature length, silent, animated film, and it came. I forget the amount of years that it was before Snow White, but I promise you it was. And yeah, history has completely glossed over her. This one genius woman.
1926.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to load up some images. 1 second.
So yeah, so I find her incredible. She's in fact, if you ever there's a BFI DVD, probably a Blu-ray as well, I'd imagine, of her film Prince Ahmed, and you can get some of the other shorts as well. But the reason that the DVD of Prince Ahmed is worth picking up is that there's about a 2-hour documentary on her on there as well, which is, almost as good as the film itself. But I don't know, I just find something really striking about a good silhouette.
Yeah, I consider silhouette as a core fundamental aspect of creativity when it comes to reading.
Absolutely.
And it's also something that's extremely important when it comes to style and painterly effects in 3D. And also very important with how
Agreed.
you light things in 3D. So I think this is a really beautiful subject case to take a closer look at to understand that fundamental. So when it comes to
Yeah.
silhouette, you've mentioned that it's striking and powerful. Why do you think that is?
Yes. Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for me personally, and I think they're to do with my weird brain. There's a couple of things going on in my brain. Firstly, is that I am somewhat colorblind, which is weird for somebody in my position. Well, in fact, it's not that weird. In fact, it's fairly common, but it is interesting. And I think that's one of the reasons I like silhouette is because I don't have to get tied down with, is this shade of color working exactly with that shade of color? I leave those decisions to other people because I can't trust my eyes. But when I'm working in silhouette and tone and that sort of thing, I can leave all that and I can just focus, and all of my brain goes into the shape of things and definition. And I don't know, there's like an extra part of my brain I think that frees up when I look at this kind of stuff. So that's one reason. And the second reason is I have recently discovered, in fact, this, what is this? Not a symptom of the way of being called aphantasia, which, if you might not know, you may or may not know, it's a condition where I have absolutely zero uh, visual memory or visual imagination. So whereas I understand, were your average person to close their eyes and imagine an apple, you would probably be able to see an apple. Whereas when I close my eyes and I think of an apple, I see absolutely nothing at all. And it's quite an interesting thing. It's only really recently beginning to be understood. It was only discovered about 5 or 6 years ago, scientifically. And yeah, so I think that's another reason, is because I have to get things in front of me to be able to understand what it is that I see. And I think that comes across as well in a lot of the stuff I do. Whereas I often will want to see some art in front of me before I can offer feedback and know where I want it to go, which I'm sure can be very frustrating for the artists I work with. But everyone's been very kind to me and let me do that sort of stuff. Either that or I do intense reference gathering, which is always good. But just while we're on this image, if we are still on this image of the towers, I love the way that because Lotte Reinegar was using, backlit stuff, you can just see all the extra bloom going everywhere. It's not just single color, or even the shadows are just filled with gradient. It's beautiful. Oh,
It's true. Come to think of that, I made a tool yesterday with grease pencil and geometry nose to draw geometry, which would cast shadows. We
ooh,
we could try reproduce one of these pieces as we continue talking. Would you like to do that?
that'd be cool.
Well,
That sounds great. You've frozen for me again, I'm afraid, but
yeah.
really frustrating. I think it's my machine. It's on its last legs.
Yeah. Oh dear. It also could be the British internet. Not the first.
That is entirely possible.
Yeah, it's got across the whole of the Atlantic and then the Caribbean as well. All right, so aphantasia. Actually, we maybe a good 40 episodes ago, a friend of mine also has aphantasia due to a
Okay.
electrical shock. He was left with
Oh,
aphantasia.
really?
So he didn't have it, and then he got it.
What sort of an adult age or?
He was a kid.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting because I remember having quite a large electric shock when I was younger, but I was very young and I don't know whether I could see things before then or not. But interesting.
Yeah.
A lot. Sometimes it is suggested that it might be associated with trauma, but who knows?
Yeah, that is it's an interesting idea because he had a similar problem. This is Pers. I highly recommend you follow Pers. He's currently an instructor for Comfy UI and an amazing AI and motion graphic artist and musician as well. But he was
Cool.
mentioning that concept of like not being able to see what he wants to do, so he feels around his art, pushing and pulling
Yes.
dials and see how it feels. And there's that kind of turned out pretty cool. And
Mhm.
we would hang out often because I'm a very methodological and I pre-visualize everything in my head. So it becomes, I look at his work, I'm like, how? How do you experiment so much without being so afraid of not knowing what you're going to do at first?
The only way. And again, it probably comes down to sort of like why I like sort of things being so loose as well, because excuse me, I just I scribble a line, and if it's not in the right place, I'll scribble a different one, and here we end up in the right place.
That's beautiful.
It's
I've learned a lot
yeah.
to let go sometimes. To loosen up my artwork, loosen up my style, loosen up the way I render shaders or do the line work, loosen up how the render's supposed to be. And it has been, over the past couple of years of trying this out, has been absolutely liberating as an artist. And I think
Cool.
there is some beauty to that, to just don't forget about perfection.
Oh, perfection is the enemy of good and all those sort of trite sayings. But one of my favorite sayings is that art is never finished, it's just abandoned.
It's true. Okay, we have a question for later though,
Okay.
but we could do it now. I imagine myself working in a big studio. It takes a lot of time and resources, including mental and health ones. Do you still have time to do your own projects and have fun with them? How do you manage to do the work and work from and for the soul?
That's a very good question, and in fact, a very timely one. So I used to be able to find. I'm a musician as well. I've come to sort of putting pen to paper quite recently, but me being a musician, Show my horse if needed. Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, so historically, I've always managed, especially, when I was single. That's easy. You can go to work and you can come home and you can do another 8 hours into 2 o'clock and who cares? But now, I'm a husband, I'm a father. So that is a significant part of my extra working thing. So for the last few years, I've really been trying to sort of put a lot of time into art, and it's not been working. It has been really, really difficult to find stuff, to find time to do my own stuff. And it doesn't help as well that I have many interests. I like to paint. I like to use markers. I like to, I have a band. We practice. We play shows. I want to write new music, and then I have to design the album cover, and I have to do all of this. It's so much that's going on. So yeah, finding time is very, very hard. And in fact, I came to the conclusion lately that it's not going to change. I kept waiting for the time to come where I would have, some available time to do these projects, and very much realized that it wasn't going to come unless I forced the matter. So while I could do little bits and pieces, it wasn't really working. So I've recently gone through a thing where I've changed my work hours very slightly. So I'm now working a 9-day fortnight. So I'll work 5 days one week, and the next week I will work 4 days, giving me 1 day off a week, which I'm going to dedicate to myself and my art and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, my first day doing that is tomorrow. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've got a million things, and now that I'm probably going to spend half the day trying to choose which one I need to do. But yeah, I mean, it is hard. And I think the only way that you can make it happen is to make it happen. Yeah, so I hope that answers that question in some ways.
That is a good way. Could
But yeah,
you repeat to me, how does it work? So you have a bi-weekly, you work 4 days 1 week, and then you work how many days the next week?
5 days. So essentially, I work. My scheduled time is 4.5 days each week, but I take the half days as both together as 1 day. So for one week is 5 days, next week is 4 days, and then the week after will be 5 days, and so on.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So hopefully it's all going to work out that I'll be able to do that more. There's still a question of how it's going to affect me financially and all that sort of stuff. But what I'm hoping is that I might eventually be able to do stuff in that day that might generate some sort of passive income or whatever, and all that horrible stuff. So there might be a way that I can regenerate money back out of stuff. Like, for example, I did an illustration of a rock club that I used to go to, and just happened to put it on their sort of Facebook group, and it really connected with a lot of people, and I ended up selling about 100 prints of it, which was incredible, and so far a complete one-off. But there might be some stuff that that I don't. I was going to say, it might be some things that I can sort of latch onto. Like maybe there are other things that people will resonate with if I illustrate certain things. That said, I don't really want to just use that time that I've now carved to be worrying about making money. We'll just see how we.
Yeah, it's going to take time to do these types of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. So if anyone knows any really good side hustles that I can just set up and leave, then let me know, because I'm all here for them.
The commission idea seems like an interesting one, actually, come to think of it. Because then it's like the 40-minute piece, and
Yeah.
You got a style and a brand that's coming out for it, so that could work.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have been offered a spot in a local gallery as well. So what I might do is, because one of the things I like to do as well is sketch cool architecture, and where I live there is quite a lot of nice, fairly old architecture and sort of quite old waterfront bungalows and weird little shaped houses, and I might try and do a little series of those and then get some space in the gallery and maybe sell prints and sell originals and see if that works as well. Just it's time to play. You know, I've been working a long time full time and have a little bit of time to myself.
It's nice. Well deserved.
Thanks.
Okay. So back to the silhouettes. So this is the tool that I built
Mhm.
specifically for today. I spent time yesterday doing it. Basically, what it does is it creates geometry and auto closes the geometry based on a grease pencil. So you can paint
Cool.
it and use it as like it's casting a shadow, as you can see. So I can like move this forward. I can start to rotate the sun, so it's always going to be in the shadow here. And then I could draw some hills with a different color. So like a grayish, I guess. Whatever color will do. And it will just start to fill in and cast shadows. So just draw another hill over here. Maybe another one over here. Yeah, sometimes it has some issues. There you go. And you can start drawing in the style, I guess. So what makes so when it comes to silhouette, what should I keep in mind when I start building my piece?
I mean, it's a good question to answer. The one thing that I like with silhouette stuff, particularly with Lotte Reinegar, and it's followed in some of my own stuff. I've also, I've completely and unashamedly ripped her off in a number of things that I've done. Um, one thing that I really like that she does is everything is always everything's bordered with curves and shape, and I think that for me is fairly fundamental in making a sort of shadow thing look good. Makes it feel cozy and it makes it feel less I don't know, it makes it feel I'm trying to think how to describe it. Makes it feel less like it's supposed to be perfect in some way.
So
Which
you
is I
have,
don't know if that makes
uh,
any sense at all.
I guess you're talking about the because you have a core shape and then you have a detail shape. So let's
Yeah,
start.
and it's the whole nature of bordering something which draws attention down to the thing you actually want to be seeing, your subject, your
Mm-hmm.
character. So that's always quite an important step for me. Um, and I think if we're talking specifically in this kind of style as well, we definitely want to be thinking about staging, and we want to be thinking about clear intention of what it is that we're seeing. So if we're talking about a character or an object specifically, then what we want to be doing is making sure that whatever that outline is instantly recognizable. We have to know exactly what they're doing, or what it is we're looking at,
Okay.
because you haven't got any other information to help your brain work it out.
Okay. So with this particular shot, what kind of story should we do? I was thinking of the towers, but
Mm.
we can think of something
Yeah,
else.
what could we do? Should we? I mean, we could have.
Someone says story time with Moog.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we've got a bit of a. Could do a classic. Somebody talking to someone or calling to someone in a tower, or we could have. What could we do? Let's go with that.
Okay, I
So
get you.
this might be a bit of a challenge because we're getting into sort of small subjects.
Okay, so what do we plan to do? Someone's in the tower. Tower 1 and Tower
Yeah.
2, right? Okay, so, and someone else is calling out to the other person in the tower. All right.
Yeah, let's do
So
that.
we need some air. And so I guess we can grab the pen and using a relatively
What
thick
might be
pen.
nice.
Could be.
Can you take subtract from that?
Subtract like white space?
Yeah, from the main shape of that tower.
Yeah,
So
for
what might be
sure.
really nice is if you carved a window into it. It's one thing that's good in this style is you don't have to worry about what's on the other side. If you want a window, you carve a window, and you don't have to worry about a back wall or anything. It just goes away.
Okay, let's give that a go. Unfortunately, my tool does not do Boolean brushes very well. And grease pencil's not very good for that. But
Sorry, I ruined it.
no, that's fine. But what we can do is we can fake it. So let me just up more processing power to my compiling by going into my system settings and adding it to subprocessors of 32. Save. And I'll use an emission. So this is where we can really break the rules. So now I got a window, and I could get round the corners by subdividing it. And this could be any size I want. And sculpt it even. So it's a fake window.
Yeah.
We could make the background even whiter as well, potentially. There we go. So back to the person. Someone who's over here. My drawing skills aren't amazing, but there's something. Calling out.
Yeah, so it's nice that we've got that clear definition between the character and the object. If we start to overlap them, that's when we get into trouble.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with the silhouette. Like, for example, you need black on black, you won't be able to see it. So, for example, this platform over here, nobody's going to see that. So what I'm going to do is I need to move the mountain closer. And
Well, what you can do is, if that was in the place it was, is just tonally put the color behind that. If we take the inspiration again from Lotte, then what she would do is essentially the main elements are pure black. Anything behind it becomes a tone of a color. So there's almost like an overlay of, usually it's blue or green with her, or yellow.
yeah, let's do that.
And that just mutes all the colors behind it, so everything else really pops.
Okay, I'll add in a colored volume. So in the add menu, I'll just use a simple shader output with a principled volume. I'll make this a nice, which color would you like?
I'm always drawn to blue or green. Let's do green today.
All right. And just check my render settings, plug it into the volume, make it not so powerful. And now we have, back into my 2D animation view, now we have a green volume.
There you go. Can you desaturate that?
I can. Volume, less saturation. There we go.
So yeah, So then we can get our detail in the background without interfering with our hero objects.
There you go. Except for this mountain up close, which is
Beautiful.
very bit obnoxious. I'm going to push it back a bit. So notice one thing about the tools with grease pencil, the layering of grease pencil is not very good. So what my tool does is and the grease pencil doesn't cast any shadows. So with this particular tool, now I can cast shadows and use lights, or for example, this point light. I can use this point light and make it much bigger and brighter to change the atmosphere of the volumetrics or whatever I want to do. You mentioned there's a lot of camera bloom as well, right? We could do that.
Yeah, that's one thing that really comes across.
Let's give that a quick go. So this would mean over here. Glare, streaks, lights, ghosts, fog, glow. Bloom. So what other fundamentals do you think is really important when it comes to creativity? You mentioned silhouettes as the first principal one because it helps your brain to see things without needing to process the color. There's a hierarchy of detail where you have the general shape and silhouette, the depth in the atmosphere, and then the shape of what you need to see to kind of read it, which is, to me, there's a neuroscience behind iconography, which confirms that the brain sees silhouette first, and then it sees the details, sees the colors, and sees everything else later, finally looking at the lines to read the lines. But our first instinct is silhouette. There was a study that babies, they have a pretty blurry vision when they're recently born. But they can only also see in red. They only have the red cones developed. The blue ones and the green ones come in later. And their vision's only about 30 centimeters clear. And their auditory nerve is very close to their optic nerve, so they actually see sound. So they're tripping.
Oh, wow.
They're born tripping.
All babies have synesthesia. That's awesome.
So they're all mixed up. But there's one thing that they do have primitively as soon as they come out. They can see the silhouette of the food source, the nipple of the mother.
Huh.
And this gives us the ability, it's our most primal concept of vision, is seeing a monochromatic silhouette, which brings us to the ability to practically feed ourselves from our mothers as a concept.
So what you're saying is there might be some sort of deep-seated Freudian reason that I like silhouette.
I don't know. Well, maybe it's easier to go back to the natal state. And I didn't know what to imply that, but I'm just saying it makes it easier to see what's happening on in the image, I guess.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's really fascinating.
So there's you got to keep that in mind when you're designing iconography or designing your art styles or your pieces that you need to do, and that's how you would get your base communication of the image you want to do, is getting the strong silhouette.
Interestingly, so when I do a lot of when I do the sort of architectural painting, I always start with very, very rough block color, and I suppose that's the same thing. Like the one we looked at earlier, that started as, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 strokes, very roughly outlining the shape. And I almost left it there, actually. I almost didn't take it any further, because it even just those few strokes representing that building was it was still working. It was still enough, you know.
That's true. So when it comes to your art pieces, okay, so we've got the silhouette. You said you're working on the general shape of the building. Is this how you start these pieces? Just you start with broad strokes, getting the shape first?
With marker, it's a little bit different just because of the process of how they need to be used. Um, I find with marker, I always start with a really loose pencil sketch, and then I add a really loose ink outline. And then I will go at it with color, and then I'll come back right at the end and add in extra details and bits and pieces. So it's a different process just because of the medium. But
Interesting.
with paint, you can work it the other way around. I suppose I probably could do markers that way, but I don't know. Actually, you know what? Now I say it out loud, I don't know if I've got any justification for doing it that way. There's absolutely a way I could I could do that. In fact, I'm lying because there's some other stuff I do. I've done uh some really loose um sort of rows of buildings where I will just do block color in random ways, and then over that I will draw, you know, outlines of buildings and windows and all that sort of stuff. But that's almost a different style again. It's still the marker stuff, and it's still um yeah, but it's almost like it's even more loose than the other stuff. Gosh, I don't know. Probably not making any sense, but there you go.
It works. Oh, I love this. It's coming out okay. Well, okay, Moog. Unfortunately, the hour is up, which means we're now.
Ah, that went quick.
It did go very quickly. So I'm going to give a couple of minutes or seconds for people to ask some questions. If you have a question for Moog, I would read them out now, and we're going to conclude. It's been very pleasurable and also a fun thing to do today, to talk about the fundamentals of the visual aspects, talk about what is creative direction, how you work with BigFarmer and working with other talented artists, working with the projects you've done, how you've hustled on the side with your family, with your artwork, how you made most of your time and really stepped up with your inkwash. Talked a little bit about your markers and your styles. I do want to reiterate that your inkwash styles and your inkwash has been a heavy inspiration that I would love to even get half close as a 3D style. I think, and the way you could do it in just 40 minutes and paint a building, I think that's absolutely a dream come true. If I can build tool sets that could do this, I think I would have made it. So your inspiration is great. And
well, I really appreciate that, and I mean, you saying that inspires me to do more. So here we go. And I mean, while we're stroking each other's hair, I mean, your work, your work is incredible as well. I mean, I remember the first time I saw it before we worked together, and it blew me away. And everything. I mean, we've had many conversations where I've blown your trumpet for you, and every step of that project that we did was wonderful, wonderful. And I think there were some early points in that project, and I know that you know the ones I'm talking about, which I think were the closest to what you're talking about. And maybe we could talk about that offline if you wanted to sort of get details. But there were some tests or some work that we did along the way that I think was very close to doing what you describe.
nice. Yeah, I'd love to hear no more. Okay, we got a couple of questions. First one is by Alan, and first off, they're very jealous that about the architecture in Europe. They really want to go back to. They want to see Europe a bit more because the architecture in the US is very boring.
Yeah, I mean, most of our houses are older than America, so
It makes sense.
sorry.
There's not much you can do about it. Yeah. And so Alan carries through with a question. What is
Matt is your friend?
yeah. What is the craziest project you have ever worked on, if you can share, whatever's been public?
Wow, craziest. I'll tell you what, there is a project I worked on that was crazy. Um, just because it was so much fun, and we just had this almost free reign to do what we want and go bananas with it. There's a game called, oh crap, now I can't remember what the game is called. Reptilian Rising, that's what the game was called. And it was a sort of isometric-y, top-down-ish game that was absolutely batshit crazy anyway. Had these really low poly models because they were supposed to be seen from a distance, and they wanted a CG piece, and they didn't have very much budget. So that's when I kind of start to come alive a little bit, because I love limitations. Limitations are the friend of creativity. If you know, so we had to think around, what can we do? So we developed this idea where we would just use these ridiculously low poly models of these characters and just really lean into it. Just absolutely, just absolutely work with this style. So we ended up doing this ridiculously 80s trailer that looked like it had been found on a VHS tape in the bottom of a garbage bin after 20 years. So everything was absolutely steeped in VHS noise. But the best thing about it is we just used these ridiculously low poly characters, but just got right up close to them as if we were, doing some sort of I don't know, World of Warcraft trailer or something. It was but we started doing this, the real stop motion kind of thing. So everything was on twos, everything was going bananas all over the place, and just and wrote this ridiculous script about these do you know what, I can't even remember the script now. This is probably a really bad answer because I'm fumbling for my brain trying to remember what's cool about it.
That
But
sounds
there was
good though.
ridiculous characters in it. Like there was I think it was called a dictator, and it was literally a dinosaur with 3 heads. Each head was a historical dictator. So I think it was Hitler. Crikey, it might have been Pol Pot. I can't remember. It was
Oof.
absolutely, maybe Mussolini. It was like it was on the edge of taste, and it was but
Wow.
it was so much fun. And it had like Albert Einstein running around with this weird giant ray gun, like shooting people, and this little team made up of Cleopatra and Einstein and Winston Churchill, and they all had like ridiculous catchphrases, and it was like some bizarre low budget 1980s toy commercial that we ended up making, and that was just absolutely nuts. It's worth checking out. I'll see if I can get a link to Dre's and he can pass it on.
That would be nice. That's a pretty fun project by the sounds of it, not just the zany story. That sounds beautiful. All right, Lambrosart has asked, as an artist, how do you think we'll survive in AI?
I have a theory about this. It's a utopian theory, and it's the only way I can see it working. The only way I can see it working is if, as a society, we end up getting some sort of universal basic income. So in my utopia, I don't care what people use AI for. I don't care if they use it to do all the art that we do. I don't care if they do it to make all the music that I make. I don't care. What it is a tool that we need to use to make humanity better. And the only way we can do that is to make sure that the people who are left behind are looked after. And if the people who are left behind are looked after, that's us artists, then we won't stop being artists. In fact, what we will have in this utopia is more time to express ourselves through our own art. So we can let, Nike and Mattel and all those people use AI to their heart's content, as long as we're looked after and we can just sit there and make our own cool shit. That's the utopian vision. The realistic answer is unless we get there, Christ, I don't know. It's going to be hard. It is going to be hard. We're already seeing um, difficulties. We're already seeing people who can't get work, and yeah, it is tricky. We need to try and press companies to be very considerate about their art. Our company has a mandate where we will, we're committed to not using AI generated materials in final output. And that's probably as best we can do at the moment. Um, I would always much rather prefer to work with an artist than sit and type lines of text into a AI generator. I have used AI in some pitch stuff if I wanted to find an image that represented a thought. Um, and I feel bad about that even because it could be seen as potentially taking work away from a concept artist, but I know that in the position I'm in, we would never be paying an artist to do that work. So it's the difference for me between spending time looking through image libraries and finding something that sort of represents what I want to see, but I can type it into, an AI generator and get something even closer to what I want to see. So that I feel is fair use. But we are reliant on humans to be compassionate to artists, and unfortunately that's the challenge. I think what we've got to do is we've just got to keep standing up. We've got to shout about it. I did start a petition along that line, is to sort of, to try and sort of start the conversation with governments and with people who need to be thinking about this stuff, about how people are going to be left behind and what can we do about it. Unfortunately, it didn't really get much traction, probably because I didn't push it enough. But yeah, I wish I could have a really great answer for you, but that little ramble is probably about the best I can do.
Yeah, it's a very complex topic because you can't just say the unemployment or difficulties in work is also a geopolitical
Yeah,
issue, evolution
for
of
sure, and it's
economies and
yeah,
historical
and it's going to hit
moments.
every industry.
Yep.
And it's like we're probably going to get hit first because that's where the AI is being trained at the moment. But it's going to hit Wall Street. People won't want traders because there's going to be AI models that are going to be able to predict it better.
Yeah.
Um,
Though funny
so
story, my brother works with the AI models for economics for traders in Holland from New Zealand and doing the software to do this, microtransactions in milliseconds, generating millions off the market. Um, there's still going to be work in that regard. He was building software for that. It's interesting. Well, it's a good question. It's a good answer too. I really liked it.
it's a really good question, and I'd love to. I mean, I'm all open to chatting a lot about that. I had a
That's
big
true.
argument. We have every year in our local we got a local games meetup called Develop in Brighton. And we had a guy come along to that who was sort of in marketing services and recruitment and all that sort of stuff. And I had a big argument with him
Ooh,
about AI. And he was just like, "Oh, well, can't artists just go and find work elsewhere and all that
it's
sort of
like
stuff?" And had that
where
attitude. And
exactly?
they're
No,
the
that's not
people we
going to
need to
work.
fight with.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which
So
is where
what we need to do is wait.
what you need to do. What?
I was going to say we need to wait for AI to hit their industries and see how they react to it. But
Yeah,
fingers crossed. Utopia. Utopia.
I do like the idea of utopia. It's a difficult one to envision. So we got another one. Can we make a Halloween themed book together? Says Cullen. But the jokes
Yes.
aside, yes, yes is the answer. The real question is,
Absolutely. When do we start?
where do we start in the time? The real question is, what's your advice for managing work-life balance while being a father and working in a demanding creative industry? Killian also
Hmm.
has family too.
What's my advice? I don't know. Everyone's different, right? Everyone's got their priorities. The only thing I can say that I'm going through at the moment, as I touched on, excuse me, briefly earlier, is we've got to try and find the time. it's very unlikely to just, you're not going to have those few hours spare. It doesn't happen. I mean, by the time I get home from work, personally, I get up in the morning. I look after my daughter. I sort her school lunch out. We all get ready. We take her around to school. Then I come home. I have a little breakfast. I work. I put my daughter to bed. I eat. By that time, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So by that point, all I want to do is sit on the sofa and watch some TV, which I do. So that's the routine, and it's not going to change unless we make it change. So my advice, just work out your priorities. I'm sure all of us in here would be under the impression that our priorities are going to be our family, our kids, our loved ones. And that's great. But if we want to do art as well, we just got to find the times when we can do it. I'm a big believer in regularity. So even if you can do something, let's say, okay, well, Tuesday nights is going to be my night for me. I'm going to, maybe you could talk to your partner and say, maybe on Tuesday night, can you do all the bedtime so I can just go and sit in a space and do all the work that I want to do and play with that? And then I will do the same for you another day, however your dynamics work. But really, I think it is just about making the time. Unless you suddenly, you happen to have a bunch of time, in which case just pull your finger out and do some art. But yeah, I think that's probably does that cover it? I think it might.
It does. That's a good one. Is make time even if you have none. But you have to.
There's a great quote of Miss Piggy on the first Muppet Show album from the 70s, and you can hear her growling at Kermit to make time, and that constantly goes round in my head.
And I'm finding that is true to some degree, because then you got to quickly manage your mind to hyper focus quickly in the time that you have, which is
and lists. List is my other one. Make lists for everything, and I know you're the same with this, Drays, but projects that you want to do, keep a log of them somewhere. So when you get that time, you don't have to waste the time thinking about what should I do?
Exactly. You're like, I already thought about this 2 weeks ago, so let's just do it.
Yeah. Pick something. Start.
There you go. One last question, and then this is actually going to hit the 1.5 hours. I am actually extremely grateful for your time. Sorry for taking so long. The viewers have stuck around. They've stuck around. It's good. I thank you, everybody. Smita Shield says, well, I would like to ask you, as a creative director, do you think it's ideal for the director themselves to be a generalist in all or almost all areas of production? I'm starting my company with other partners, and I'm a small generalist. And so far, I'm actually the creative director of my own company right now. But I wonder, what would be the ideal, and where should I improve to take on the role of a creative director? What do you need to be or do?
Okay. It's going to vary with the company, with the size of the company. I think as a creative director, you do need to have an understanding of many disciplines. I personally, I mentioned earlier on, I can't use 3D software. I came up through editing and motion graphics. That was my career path goes back further. I was in games development, and then drifted into video. From games design into video elements for games, out into my own freelance stuff, trying to make music videos at exactly the time that all the money ran out of music videos. So I got back into making games trailers, and it all came together. So along the way, I've picked up a bunch of skills. I've dabbled a little in 3D, but my main interest was in Job Simulator video. my main interest has always been in sort of in 2D stuff, in manipulating video, manipulating flat image. But along the way, over the years, I've picked up a lot of information about how people do things, and I still learn every single day. I'll learn something new about how a particular artist does a particular thing. To be a creative director, I do believe you need to have a good understanding of what is possible. But the reason we work with other artists is to help translate that vision. And one of the biggest hurdles to get over from being an on the tools artist to being a creative director is being able to let go of the feeling that you need to do everything yourself, because you don't. That's why we work with other people. I think for me, being a creative director, the key is, again, touching on something I said earlier a little bit. The key for me is not being too micromanaging, being very open in communication, and trying to be very realistic and honest, but letting other people do the work that they need to do.
That's a big lesson, and that's one I have something I'm learning as well. I do like to take everything on, but sometimes that does not help. So learning to work with others, learning to delegate, learning to trust, and also learning to allow people to thrive at what they're good at and what they like to do. It's
Absolutely.
a
And good luck
core.
with that company, Vito.
Yeah, good luck with that. So that's it for today. Thank you everybody for your excellent questions. Your answers were gold, and thank you for your time again, Moog. I'm really happy to see you again. And let's do some more hair stroking. I could do it all day.
But let's do it. And Killian, seriously, get in touch with me if you want to do that book.
Yes, that sounds
but
good.
yeah, no, thanks, Trace.
It's been great.
Yeah, I've had a blast. It's been lovely to talk to you, and hang out.
Yeah.
I've missed it.
Oh, that's good. I miss it too. I added some bloom to the image in the end.
Oh wow! Can you zoom in like really quick? So it's all under my face. Oh, you know what? I've frozen again. Don't worry. Send me a picture later.
All right. Just give me a moment. 1 second. Full camera. Me. Just the desktop. There we go. There you go. Full screen. So it can be in 3D.
Ah, there we go.
I mean, obviously, it can have a lot more details or concepts. Bring them closer together. To the right.
You know what I would do is I would just nudge that right-hand tower so there's no gap on the right-hand side. It's sort of close up to the screen, so it starts on a black silhouette. That'll give it that border that we talked about earlier. But anyway, we're trying to close down. So
yeah, okay, it's all good. All right, thank you.
I mean, I'm fine. I'll stay here for ages. I don't care, but Hey.
Well, I'll stop the stream here today. I'll see you everybody in a couple of weeks. I'm talking with another artist who is an extremely amazing conceptual and 3D modeling artist who potentially uses virtual reality and Blender to do their work. Extreme keen eye for form and color, and also a very fantastical mind. An excellent person. Hopefully she can come on. If not, I have some other few people in my scopes, so stay tuned. If you have an artist that you'd like to recommend to come onto the show, feel free, and I'll keep them coming. Thanks again, Moog. Hopefully we can continue our talks in much detail soon, if not after this. So
I'd look forward to it.
So yeah, let's have an after party, and this is it for today.